Live. And I know that we have Councilmember Adams and we have Councilmember Tran here by phone with us. Okay. All right. I'd like to call the public hearing regarding the potential issuance of communications bond and fiber telecommunications project to order. And we are not going to do a preamble. We're just going to turn all the time over to residents who would like to speak. So you have a 3-minute time limit. I'm very strict about the 3 minutes. But if you would like, the time is yours.
My name is Gill Miller. I'm an undecided voter on the fiber issue. That said, I would like to address 2 issues that I'm hoping the council will consider now and in the future. Having sat in your chair, I recognize the importance of obligating the city to a long-term bond. The city has done so in the past and will do so in the future. Both of my issues revolve around the financial aspects of bonding in terms of both educating a city council and educating the citizens. I believe the financial pros of such a bond have been well publicized and discussed, both by the council and other supporters. I also believe the financial cons, on the other hand, have been less publicized and less discussed. I do not mean to embarrass and certainly not harass anyone on the council or staff for what I'm about to say. I know firsthand that the council and staff have Kaysville's interest first in their minds. My first issue: as I've watched various council meetings where the Kaysville fiber bond has been discussed, I've been concerned by the lack of involvement by the city finance manager. This is not a criticism of Mr. Story, but could be considered such of the council. Regardless of any particular vocation each member of the council may have, city finances are unique. I dare say it took me best of 9 years on the council to perhaps understand 1/10 of what Mr. Story understands in terms of city finance. I hope that a great deal of council education from the staff has been happening behind the scenes on this particular bond issue, but I would suggest you allow the citizens to also see and hear the council ask the tough questions of staff when contemplating a $22 million bond or any bond in the future. My second issue, in regards to educating the citizens, I believe more should be said about the possible financial cons of this particular bond. That's not to say the pros may indeed outweigh the cons, but I would want to make sure the voting citizen knows the complete picture. While much has been said about all sorts of fiber pros, far less has been said about the break-even point or self-sustaining point that needs to be reached in terms of households in order for the general public, via the general fund, to not have to subsidize this bond. I believe the latest estimate is that 3,500 households are needed for a self-sustaining bond. My ask here tonight is that the council continue to educate the public as to this financial reality so that they make an informed decision. It's simply not good enough in your well-reasoned and appreciated zeal to suggest all will be well because Kaysville Fiber is going to be greatly successful for the next 20 to 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Rusty Cannon with the Utah Taxpayers Association. Just some brief statements on the fiber project. Our concern to the public that will now be voting on this is that the statement that this won't be funded by tax dollars, we think will eventually be proven false. To give you a quick story, so Provo attempted municipal fiber finished their project in 2006. About 1 year after completion of their construction, they already diverted over $1 million of sales tax revenue to start paying the debt, and they had not planned on that. Eventually, they walked away from Provo, iProvo it was called, for the sum of $1. Completely lost all $39 million. What they came to the realization is not only do you have to build the network, you have to maintain it. And often those costs are a lot steeper. So the main problem we're seeing at this point is the assumptions that are on the website with the take rate. It mentions a self-sustaining take rate of 38 to 44%. But if you look at the 14 cities that are participating in Utopia, which we think is a good example of what a municipal fiber program might look like, none of those 14 cities are above 40% with the exception of 2. Only one of them is above 50%, and that's Linden. The vast majority of them, the take rates are at 30% or lower. So the self-sustaining that's on the website at 38 to 44, we think that is not realistic. So if that's going to be lower, we think that this is eventually going to divert badly needed general fund dollars away from fire, away from police, and eventually could lead to higher taxes. So that's the concern we have. And the fact of the matter is 22 million debt payments on that could be, depending on the interest rate, well over $1 million a year. And if subscriber count isn't high enough, that can lead to some serious drainage of general fund dollars, which obviously comes from sales tax. And in a worst case scenario, crunch the budget and require higher property taxes in Kaysville. So those are our concerns, and we really appreciate you taking the time to listen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else who would like to speak at this time? All right, well, wait. We'll give it another 5 minutes. I want to be sure to allow enough time for if somebody comes in a little bit late. I know, right? I told you I'm very strict about my 3 minutes. Thank you. Good point, good point.
So that's fixed. We'll give you your 30 seconds back. Do you want your 30 seconds?
Andre wants to hear his comment.
Now, whoever walks in that door will. Do you want to talk? Do you want to speak? Oh, hi. Mr. Lewis, would you like to speak?
Would I like to speak?
Yes.
I haven't heard anything that's been going so far, so.
Okay. All right. We're having the bond hearing that you might want. So, and there's a lull. So if you would like to speak about the potential bond, now's the time.
How much is the bond?
It's $22 million.
22. Yeah.
Up to.
Up to.
Up to.
Up to.
Okay, it's a $22 million bond?
It's up
Up
to
to, yeah.
22 million.
Oh, it's up to. Okay, what's the interest rates and how long does it take?
This is going to be
yeah.
for the fiber project that is being voted on in November. So,
Oh, so we
Yeah.
don't know anything about this other than it'll be
Yeah.
up to
We-
22
we-
Yeah,
million?
the
We
interest,
issued
it's
parameters.
on the website too.
Okay,
yeah.
you know,
Then you'll save your comments for later?
okay, just personally,
Yes.
with as many people who are struggling with finances right now, even though they say the unemployment isn't bad, it would concern me that we would take on a whole lot more debt without consideration to some of the people. That's one of my biggest concerns.
Okay. That's
'Cause,
very valid. Thank you.
You know, my income dropped by $20,000 this year, and I'm guessing that a lot of other retired people did too. So,
Thank you.
watch out for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. I think I'm going to,
I think we said till 7:15. Do you want to, in case somebody does come
It
again?
said 7:15 or.
Yeah, you don't need to wait till 7:15.
Okay.
It said on the
Yeah.
thing until.
yeah.
Do you want a motion?
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion. We close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Blackham, seconded by Councilmember Lortz. All in favor?
Aye.
Tammy? Or Councilmember Tran?
Aye.
Okay. All right, we will close that public hearing. Thank you very much. All right. And I would now like to open our September 17th, 2020 City Council meeting and welcome you to this meeting. I will be providing the opening. Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to gather together today, and we are very grateful for the blessed circumstances in which we live. We are grateful for the freedoms that we enjoy. We're grateful that we have been able to come through a very difficult week from the windstorm, and we're also grateful for the good people here in Kaysville who came together to put our city to rights. We're grateful for the opportunity that we have to express our opinions on matters of local government, and we're grateful for this institution here in the United States. Please help us as a council that we will be blessed with understanding minds and listening ears, and help us also that we will keep in mind what is best for Kaysville now and in the future. And we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We don't have any recognitions or presentations this evening. Do we have any conflicts of interest?
No.
Okay. We'll now move on to our consent agenda. Would anybody like to move the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent items A, B, and C as outlined on the agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Lortz, seconded by Councilmember Barber. Any comments? All right, we'll go to a vote. Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
Councilmember Tran.
Aye.
Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion is unanimous. Thank you. All right. Now we're going to go on to action items. First, we're going to have a discussion on our carbon-free power project participation. And I will turn that over to Bruce. Is Bruce here?
Sure.
Yes. Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah. There is not a whole lot to tell other than the deadline was pushed back from all the cities deciding from September 30th to October 30th. So we really don't know any more than we did because all the councils have pushed back their decision-making to later in October. So, but nothing else has changed as far as, there's no more subscription and no one else has dropped out. But like I say, nobody's taken it to their councils yet. So besides, the Logan and Lehigh that have already decided. So,
Okay.
so we talked about tabling it maybe in
Question.
case anything happens between
All
now
right.
and October 1st, the next meeting, right?
Yeah. All right. I don't have anyone signed up to speak in public invited to be heard. So we'll go to questions from council. Councilmember Barber?
That was going to be my question, is what would be a recommendation that we table this? And then my second kind of first question is, what could possibly change between now and October, the end of October, that's going to give us enough confidence to stay in?
I think really the only thing would be if someone outside an entity came in and took a whole lot of subscription.
Yeah.
Councilmember Lortz?
I think, Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, but I also believe that UAMPS is negotiating with New Scale on the participation agreement and trying to alter it to limit the risk for those current subscription cities so that they're not, shall we say, proportionally linked to the participation. And I think that's the thing that may change, that would change the risk profile of us staying in the project. They're also still working with the Department of Energy to try to get the Department of Energy to take more of the risk for the next phase of this project, to provide the funding so that the cities that are currently signed up do not have to provide that.
And that's what I forgot to mention. That is the only reason that the deadline was pushed back, is because the Department of Energy has not voted and committed to a certain amount of money yet. So
Okay.
that's what forced the pushback on the timing.
Okay, and I have a question in regards to timing. If this council decides to go ahead and vote to leave the project, can we get back on? Yeah?
Yes, we would be able to. It might not be, it might be at a different price later on. If it all works out, it might be, a little differential in price.
Could we?
But we wouldn't have the
There's
risk.
no
Councilmember Lortz.
preset contract that we could sign up for later. We'd have to negotiate.
Not
a
yet,
new-
but they've talked about it. They obviously need the subscription, levels to go up, so there would be some negotiation later on with that.
Okay, Shane?
In answering Councilmember Barber's question, I think my recommendation would be that you leave the project tonight, because I think it's more likely that nothing is going to change that would change that decision. We have one council meeting in October.
Yeah.
And so, if we decide to get back in, we would have to have a special meeting, and that I think that would be okay with everybody. If we just table it tonight to October 1st, if we know something by October 1st, that's great, but I think it's unlikely that we will. I think if we know anything, eventually it'll be before October 31st or very near then. So if we get out of the project, and then if we decide to get back in, we can have a special meeting, but I think it's unlikely that anything's going to change.
Councilmember Blackham?
That was going to be my recommendation, is that we've kind of decided and talked about this, that we get out of it. Because I'm a little concerned with all the things that we have on the agenda that I believe we're going to have on the first meeting in October, and then we've talked about canceling that. I don't want somehow us to lose this in the background, and we miss the deadline, and we could be held to something we don't want to be in.
Yeah.
And I think we're all here, and
That's true. I'm 99% sure nothing's going to change, because, like I said, most of the other cities I talked to, they're pushing their decision back to the 27th of October, as late as they can. So we're not going to know anything different than we know right now.
Okay. Councilmember Tran, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, I don't.
Councilmember Adams, any questions?
No, thank you, though.
Mm-hmm. All right. I will entertain a motion at this time.
I would make a motion that we withdraw from the UAMPS carbon-free power project, with the stipulation that if there is material changes, that we would have a special meeting to discuss the impacts of those.
I'd second that.
Okay. It's been moved by Councilmember Lortz and seconded by Councilmember Blackham. Any comments at this time? All right. Councilmember Lortz?
I'd like to comment. I mean, as we've said before, the withdrawal is not because we don't believe in the project. I really do believe that this is an innovative project that is going to be very important in the future. If they can make this work, it's going to really transform the ability to use renewables and be able to have sustainable, on-demand generation when you have no wind, when you have no sun, when you have other problems that can create obstacles with steady power on a renewable source. So I really, want to make sure we emphasize, we'd love to be in this project. We just don't want to take on the risk of the project at this point.
I fully agree.
Can I say a comment?
Councilmember Barber, yes.
One other thing that I'd say is, and I'm sure Bruce is following this as well, but from our commitment, even though we're leaving the project, we're going to be hands-on watching this. Like, we are just, I feel like our investment is changed from the city's perspective, but I'm just as excited and invested to watch what happens, so it's successful and we can join at a later date. So it's not like our commitment as the city is really just shifted to a different perspective. So I'm excited to see where it goes. And maybe shortly from now we'll be there. I was going to say a date, but I don't want to. At some point.
All right. Okay. Councilmember Adams or Councilmember Tran, any comments?
No, I disagree with what everyone said. I think it's a great potential project and would like to sit back and watch, so see what happens.
Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you. All right, we'll go to a vote. Councilmember Tran.
Aye.
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 Councilmember Adams. Thank you. Motion is unanimous. All right. Now we'll go to an ordinance amending Section 17-31-2, accessory structures of Title 17, Planning and Zoning of the Kaysville City Ordinances. Lyle.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief with this. It's one that we've discussed over multiple meetings with the council. What this does is specifically deal with where structures can be placed that are detached accessory structures on a property. From comments and the direction of the council, also talked about the limitation on size, leaving it as a percentage rather than a fixed set number at 3,000 square feet. So it hasn't changed in what it accomplishes. I appreciate Councilmember Black, and we've looked at and the wording on it. Hopefully what's before you is simply clear what you're voting on at this point, whether you're in favor or opposition. It shows where those buildings may be and that size allocation. So be happy to take any questions with that as well at this point.
Okay. I don't have anybody signed up to speak on this item, so we'll go to questions from council. No questions, no questions, no questions. Councilmember Adams, do you have any questions?
I think my only question would be towards Councilmember Blackham, if he feels fairly satisfied with the changes that have been made. I think he was on the postponed it.
I do. I think it clarifies it much easier to understand.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Tran, do you have any questions?
I have a comment.
Okay, yeah, hold the comment, and we'll go to, I'll entertain a motion. And I think,
Motion to approve it. Let me just get back to that page just a second so I can see what it is. Okay, make a motion to approve an ordinance amending section 17-31-2, accessory structures of Title 17, Planning and Zoning of the Kaysville City Ordinances.
I'll second.
okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Tran, seconded by Councilmember Barber. And now we'll go to comments. Councilmember Tran, you had a comment.
My main comment was just that I really appreciate that we have a council willing to look at these ordinances and that we've got the expertise on council to be able to look at them with planning and zoning, just to make sure that things are making sense. And that we're very specific in what we're doing. So I just really appreciate being part of a group that is willing to look at things and make sure that it's truly serving the needs and meeting the purposes that the ordinances were created to protect and to meet. So
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for looking at that again, you guys.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments at this time? Okay. Let's go to a vote. Councilmember Barber?
Aye.
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 And Councilmember Tran? Okay. Motion is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, now we are moving on to our work items. We are going to fiscal year 2021 budget discussion, and we'll turn it over to Dean.
Mayor,
Sir?
is there a possibility we could maybe change the two items? Is that
Yes.
possible?
Change the-
Yes.
Make a motion that we
Order?
do B first and A second, because I think the discussion on A is going to be
You know,
a lot longer.
that's fine. I had a similar comment, but Lyle is going to man that discussion, and he's here anyway, so. It
It
doesn't-
doesn't matter. It just seems, I think the other one's going to,
It
It
makes,
doesn't
it maketh no difference to
know
me.
if anybody was
Lyle,
here.
let's do the sidewalk discussion first, if you don't mind. Is that all right? Okay.
Yeah, so again, as a work item, was hoping just to introduce an idea that we've been working on from staff on managing the state and repair of our sidewalks around town. So Jordan, if you'll flip through. So this is something that we've thought about for a while internally, and just kind of serendipitously had some outreach from this Precision Concrete. It's a group that our Parks Department and others we've worked with before. I'm very pleased with their work and some of the ideas that a lot of other cities are doing on how they manage some of the state of sidewalks. So if you'll flip forward, Jordan. So we, again, kind of reached out as we've been doing some outreach and interest, trying to find a better way to take care of the sidewalks. The way that we manage it currently is pretty much by complaint. So if somebody trips or sees something that's really damaged, they'll call our office and say, you know, I was walking in this neighborhood, can the city go take care of the sidewalks? And of course we go check it out, and typically the process is if we determine that it's you know, in a state of repair that's in need of replacement, the adjacent property owner is ultimately responsible to take care of it. But we do participate with them as a city in helping accomplish that, and that participation includes tearing out the bad sidewalk, and then they have to coordinate with the contractor to re-pour a new slab or section, however much there might be. So it's, in almost every case, a complete repair and replace. That will continue. There's going to be times when that's necessary, and we'll show a couple pictures and examples of that. But this will help take care of some of the different issues when your sidewalk just isn't, you know, different slabs aren't matching up. There's small gaps. So if you'll push forward, Jordan, on keep going. So this is just an example. So as we've been thinking about this, this group came to us and said, you know, we've got equipment, and I went on YouTube, and you can actually see a video of kind of how they do it. It's essentially like a Trimble GPS unit that they go out and they'll go over all these bumps in the sidewalk, and they can measure how much of a difference there is in width, whether it meets ADA compliance, how many there are. So knowing the city somewhat decent and knowing where we get a lot of concern from residents, we said, well, go check this neighborhood. Roughly a quarter mile of road, I think, is how much they ran over. And it's been a while since I went out there, but when I first did this, it you know, looked like a sidewalk art kind of festival or something. There were marks everywhere on where they were finding these gaps and differences in sidewalks. So you can see 376 areas where they noticed that there were some items. If you'll move forward, Jordan. This is just a little closer up so they can identify again which type of issue that is by the different colors, what type of problems are there and the severity of it. Keep going. So they came to us with a proposal and said, hey, look, if you were to go this route, we could repair some of the things, 3/4 of an inch or greater, for about $16,000, or we'll essentially take care of all of these trip hazards, you know, the whole 376 that were identified, for roughly another $10,000, the $25,000 range. Keep moving forward, Jordan, please. We'll skip that. Go ahead. We can come back if anyone needs to. We're happy to address more detail if this is another work item or action item. But it just shows a program that, you know, it makes a lot of sense on a dollar basis. So the cost of ripping out, repouring all this concrete, you know, really adds up. Their estimation of the demolition and removal, about $120,000 if they were to fix all these areas with what we would require now working with property owners. And they're saying, you know, for $25,000, they essentially take a saw, blade type equipment, and they'll grind it down. There'll be some pictures of how they do that. So it allows the sidewalk to stay in place, smooths it out so you don't have the gap differences, and you know, whether you're just not paying attention, looking at your phone, or those who struggle walking and aren't lifting their feet as much, it's a safer passage. So these are the types of things that they would be able to grind down and saw cut to repair and patch. The idea with this program is it would be the city taking on these types of issues. So again, if it's the big, such as these, yeah, that's got to go. We'll continue to work with the property owners and continue to participate with the removal and coordinate with them on getting something repoured. But hundreds of tripping hazards, at least in this particular area is one example, don't require that level of repair and replacement. So it's something unique that we've not been doing in the past. We're proposing, you know, a more proactive approach of the city to consider this. Please,
Councilmember Lortz.
So, Lyle, a couple questions I had while we're talking about these right here makes sense. So some of the slabs, it appears that, you know, they've shifted, sunk, risen, whatever. Have we looked at, for some of those, rather than replacing them, just, jacking them, mud jacking or whatever, to level them up that way instead of, as another alternative as well? Because I didn't see that in any of this of trying to move them versus just cutting off a portion, shaving it down.
Yeah, it's a great question. I've not looked at that specifically on it. And case by case, there have been a couple in the past I've dealt with where people have asked, can I do this? So on these big repairs, we would give people the option of how they want to replace them.
Okay.
On those that are, it's only going to be a certain level before it just has to be,
Right.
kind of the big work anyway, because otherwise you're taking away so much concrete that you're back down to dirt. So they're going to repair a lot of them, but we could continue to give people that an option. I'd be happy to look into
Okay.
before we move on this in any manner, maybe if that's a part of this and how we could look at that.
Well, I'm sure
Get
that's
back-
going to probably be ones that we're going to say are full replacement rather than they're going to be able to deal with in this manner.
That's typically what it would, and so again, that option would remain. If they can repair it and meet our standards and a lift is sufficient, we would let them do that rather than tear it out. I'm not personally aware if the cost is much of a savings to them or not, and we'd be happy to look into that and let you know.
It's expensive.
I thought it was a lot less than replacing though.
It's about equal, you just don't have all the tear out.
Okay.
They drill the holes, pump it in, lift it up, but it's pretty expensive. I had some estimates done on about a 12 by 20 slab was $4,000.
Wow. Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
carry on.
Yeah, one
Thanks.
thing we do, which is of interest, and again, as I talk maybe more about the long-term picture of this program, at least as I currently see it. These, for example, maybe don't have the issue, but the most common thing, at least that I've seen, that causes the damage to sidewalk or tree roots. As they grow and expand, you'll get that, and we've typically with people over the years, if we know that that's the issue and it's going to continue being an issue, we'll typically work with them to remove that cause of the problem before we'll work with them to replace the sidewalk. So as best we can, we try and determine those issues so that we're not just every year running into the same thing or every few years. But of note, things underground, soil quality, roots, you fix it once, things will change over time. So that's, a big consideration, I think, with this program is, I think the $25,000 does a lot of good over a long stretch of sidewalk. We can continue to address these, but it's essentially a commitment to kind of an ongoing program. So again, here's a picture of what it would look like, the types of repairs we'll take care of, and why we're confident in this particular contractor and the type of work they've shown also here in Kaysville in the past.
Councilmember Lords, did you have another question?
As I understood from what you're saying, that we're not asking for any participation from the residents of these that we're going to go do these fixes. The city's just going to use their budget for repairs to go and do this on our own.
Correct. That's the idea. So it's new monies as far as, I take that back. So the Public Works Department actually has money allocated for sidewalk repair in its budget currently. They just don't use it in this matter. So they'll find projects, or it goes towards the repair and replace and other items. So the directors told me, yeah, we would just kind of put it into this pot and use it towards this program specifically, because we think we get the best bang for our buck with the
And then
resources we're allocating.
If we have to do some actual replacements, is this use the whole budget, or is this just a portion of it, so we still have money if we have to go replace sections?
So in this case, it's about $25,000 that's budgeted for sidewalks. So we'll call it the gold-plated option to just take care of everything uses that chunk of the budget. The repair and replace, the proposal is not to participate monetarily in those beyond what we currently do, and that is, we just give them staff time, when they're between jobs with Public Works, we'll help tear it out. So,
Okay.
yes, there are man-hours involved in those types of costs.
But there's not external costs
it
for the
wouldn't add to
city
the
to do
budget.
that portion? Okay, thank you.
But yeah, I think we'd be happy as a council to consider limits, caps. We could modify how much we take care of within a certain range. But the idea, this is one neighborhood. If you do it here, are you willing to go the next year? We'll find the next worst area that we can think of, do a similar program, and up to $25,000 worth of repairs. And, you're going to go around the city. We got many, many miles of sidewalk.
Yeah.
taking away a half mile, quarter mile at a time. By the time we're done, we might be back to this neighborhood to do it again. So it's a pretty big commitment, frankly, but we think it does a lot of good with the value.
We don't want to ask the residents to participate, so we can extend that. So, I mean, if we get them to even a 50-50, that we can do twice as much, or?
Well, I don't have a question, I have a comment.
Go ahead. This is
Work
work
session.
items, so, yeah. Okay, Adams, you'll be next. Go ahead, Blackham.
To me, this is an absolute win-win. This is a great program because, and I'm going to paint a picture for you. So somebody walks down your sidewalk, they get a tripping hazard, they call Lyle on the phone. Lyle has to go up and verify it with his employees. They write a letter to the homeowner, then the homeowner contacts the city, and somehow they get on the schedule. Now, Josh has to now get a couple of guys, a tractor, a dump truck, or whatever it takes, because that's the city's participation, to tear it out. Now, then the individual homeowner has to go try to hire their own contractor to come in and pour the concrete. Have you talked to anybody who's tried to hire somebody to come pour 2 sections of
I'm
sidewalk?
currently waiting.
Or 3?
No one shows up.
And it's almost impossible, and it's very costly. And if you've been in a city where they've done this, it's a great fix. And it's, you know, obviously you saw pictures where it's not possible, and it's the old policy, you know, we go tear it out, they replace it. But when you look at all those dirty skeleton heads on that picture he had, or whatever they are, that's just how people look at it. I mean, look at that. Look at how much you can do for $25,000. That would be over $100,000 easily to fix that. And not only that, it creates a mess because you're tearing up lawns, sprinklers, everything else. And if you can do this, this is a great program for pennies on the dollar.
And would this be coming through, would this be through our street budget?
Yeah, part of the Public Works budget that's currently allocated towards sidewalks,
Well, yeah.
even today, so.
It seems to me that, you know, that would be a real benefit to everybody, and PS road fee. And this would be a nice amenity.
Oh, and like I said, what did they say it would take to do all that? It was just a couple of weeks?
They move very fast, so they get this data quickly. And, you know, my current thinking is we would maybe one a year, just get one area, so we're not going to go big,
And I can't even imagine
but
the
they work quick.
logistics of us tearing that much out, hiring every one of those red dots, hiring a contractor to come in and pour 2 sections of sidewalk.
All right.
Yeah, so we would look to your
Okay.
direction as to,
Okay.
you know, generally speaking, is this type of program something you're interested in seeing an action item on, and if there are
Okay.
questions?
And Councilmember Adams.
Yeah, I got the harebrained idea a few years ago to get a ski rope style leash and a pair of rollerblades. And thought it would be a great way to exercise and have my dog pull me. And I get one of these edges of concrete and went flying on my face, nearly getting a concussion. So I think this is a great idea. I guess my only question would be, is there anybody else that does the precision cutting? I mean, is this something that we need to put out for bid? That would be my only thought. I mean, not anything against the company that's proposing, but is there more than one company that does this?
Yeah, we could look to see if there are others who offer the program and then get some idea with it. We were so close to that 25 grand range, and just knowing then that we wanted to present this idea in this, and if that's the will of the council, we'd be happy to see if we can get other prices from other entities of how that may work out.
I forget, Shane, what's our policy again on such things?
This one probably would require 3 bids. It's above the threshold.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I'm trying to think if there's something specific. There are some direct purchases we do with certain companies when they have a specific need that we fill, or they have a certain product that we want to purchase, but I can't think what that would
Because
be in this
wouldn't this
case.
be one, if we decided to go with it, we'd actually try to do maybe a 3-year contract, so you would want to do a bid
Yeah, I would think
process.
so too. I don't know about 3-year contract, but that sounds like a good idea.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Barber.
So what's the communication going to be to residents? I mean, are we going to identify ones that need to be done? It'll always be like in partnership with the city. We're not just going to recommend this company go approach them on their own.
So, again, we would take the direction, and I think most of these items, at least that this company would do, it's in the public right-of-way on the sidewalk. They would simply go out and mark it, identify it. It's such fast work that it doesn't impede on their ability to get in and out of their house. They can easily wait 5 minutes or go to another block to repair it. So it's just a matter of them going in. The city said take care of it, and they're in and out in a few weeks to clean these areas up. Again, the repair and replace, that, you know, it's the complete tear out, that's a different story where we, in writing, send letters and coordinate with those residents specifically. We could, again, at the will of the council, with new programs, so new ideas are always welcome. If we wanted to send something to the residents in an area, hey, we're going to be doing this, just a heads up, that's who's out there, we could send some sort of notice.
Okay.
I think
Alright.
just our standard procedure would be fine. Just getting there.
Councilmember Tran, do you have any questions on this?
I just had, and maybe it's just because I can't hear perfectly, what's the estimated time for something like this to be completed?
So it takes them a few weeks to get out there. So by the time we solidify a contract, it sounds like we'd be going to bid and looking at multiple options if we're going to be doing it at this scale. Anyway, once all that's done and they're on site, they can do about a quarter-mile sidewalk within a roughly 3-week period. So it's very fast, and again, it's not very invasive or obtrusive like a street project. They're really not in people's way.
Is this something that would happen until the spring?
Oh, I'm sorry?
The spring for the first?
This spring?
Yeah, it sounds like at this point with what we're needing to do to make sure we're getting the bids and estimates and so forth, we may not be ready by fall.
Okay.
But we'll have that direction.
Okay, and then I was just wondering, is there a nomination process to nominate sidewalks that within the neighborhoods?
And thus it begins. Yeah. Lyle, I would assume that they would, what we're proposing is this neighborhood here. And then every year, just choosing the next,
Yep.
they're probably going to need to be ranked and,
Yeah, that's exactly right. We would proceed with this one. Our Public Works is pretty familiar with the condition of a lot of our
Yes.
infrastructure.
Yeah.
We have a decent idea, even in our office, based on complaint concerns and the items we see. Goes without saying, the older sidewalk is probably, older parts of town have more needs. And then as other areas age, and again, it's these trees and vegetation that are kind of the big culprits, they'll have their turn too. So by the time we get to those other areas, there'll be some needs for sure. So we'd be happy to, if there's a more formal process, we consider that.
yeah. And I just have to say that I fully support, I think sidewalks are part of our transportation system, and I love the idea of being able to do something, some small something, to be able to accommodate people who are trying to get around other than, actively transportating. So,
And I look
Yeah.
at it too late. I mean, it probably took them 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes to do that. And I
That's
try to
amazing.
think of the logistics of tearing that out, getting a contractor, pouring it back, and I see that, and it's just,
That's awesome.
wow.
okay. All right. Okay. So it sounds like there's general support for this, that we'd like to have 3 bids and maybe bring it back to council.
Sure.
So I don't believe we need to have a vote if this is just general direction.
Yeah, I think we'll take that direction and be happy to get those, look at more details, more answers. And then we'll work with you.
But we are
as it gets
interested,
ready. If it
yeah.
comes back to an action item, I assume it'd be something very similar to this proposal. So, thank you.
That would be great. Thanks, Lyle.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
project.
All right.
Awesome.
Okay, now we're moving on to what we're really, this is, I was mentioning to Shane that the budgetary process, this is where you see policy in action. It's what you fund that shows your priorities. So, so this is really important.
I'm glad,
Thank you.
I'm glad you think so. I do.
Yes, it's very important.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we want to discuss the fiscal year 21 budget. As you recall, back in March, when we were beginning the process to review the budget, we were hit with the COVID-19 issue, and we thought it wise at that time to, for the most part, put a hold on the 21 budget and revisit the budget when we felt like we had enough information. So tonight, we'd like to review just a couple handouts that are important pieces of the budget. The first handout there is sales tax, 5-year trend. As we started the discussion, I think our biggest concern as far as ongoing revenue for the 21 budget had to do with sales tax. We were uncertain, what would happen with sales tax numbers, and so the purpose tonight is maybe just to bring you up to date on sales tax. Probably a surprise for all of us. It didn't affect Kaysville as much as we heard that it might. In fact, sales tax revenue is up significantly over the prior year. You can see the breakout of the local option sales tax portion year over last year is up quite a bit. The population distribution is flat or up a little bit. But overall, about 622,000 over the prior year in sales tax revenue. And that's about 700,000 over what we had in our budget. So that gives us some flexibility as we move forward with consideration of amendments. The next handout has to do with staffing. As you know, each budget includes a list of council-approved positions. These typically are full-time benefited positions.
This one?
Yes, yeah, that the council approves. You can look at the list and then highlighted in green by each department. There is a request or a recommendation as we look at amending the budget to consider additional staffing in those areas. So you can see under administration, there's a recommendation for a utility billing clerk. I think this is one that we've talked about over several years. Another one in administration is in the IT department, information systems analyst. That would help us with our on-base program and our workflow issues, and in addition to helping these guys that are going crazy now with all that they've got going on. And then under Public Works Department, you can see under Maintenance Worker 3 is a request of 2 positions. And I think that one essentially has been approved for the Water Department. And so, but we've included as part of this list. And if you flip over the page to Fire and Ambulance, the request is for 3 full-time firefighters. And so we've added that to our list. And then in the Power Department is a locator position. And as we look at that, that may be one that we tentatively want to approve, but maybe wait until we're farther along with the fiber project.
Yeah.
So with that, it would bring it to 119 full-time employees with 8 under consideration for fiscal year 21.
I'd like to mention at this point, and I've spoken to department heads and several folks. During the windstorm, I was reminded once again how much we need a communications director. And I know that that was not something that was on the list originally. But after talking with most of the department heads, and this would be a position that would benefit all departments, I would like to introduce the idea that perhaps we could find CARES money or some way to also look to hire a communications director. So I'm just going to interject that at this point as we're talking about potential filling of positions. So I just want to have that on the record at this point. So go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions on that handout? Okay, the next series of handouts deals with the proposed compensation plan for fiscal year '21. As you recall, about the same time frame, February, March, we were wrapping up a compensation study and a recommended pay plan, which moves the pay plan from a grade and step plan to a pay range plan. And so what you're seeing here is the recommendation with maybe just a few changes that was prepared back in March. In addition, we have added to the recommendation the 1% that the council already approved as part of the fiscal year '21 budget. I don't think I need to say anything more there. You can see that each position is identified. There is a corresponding job description with each position, and then a pay range rather than a grade and step plan. And then the next sheet, after that, we go to the Kaysville City Compensation Plan, Pay for Performance, Pay Progression Matrix. This again is something I think we brought up in our work session earlier, kind of a shift from how employees move along the pay plan rather than a step every year or whatever we determine. It's basically a percentage based on budget availability. So for example, you've got a matrix there where in the middle column, middle row, most employees would fall within the standard merit range. So if an employee is between the minimum and the midpoint, they would receive a 3% market adjustment. If they're from the midpoint to the maximum, it would be a 2.5% increase. And the notion there is that you get people trained quicker, you move them up where they're competent and fully capable of doing their job, and that should be from midpoint on. And then in addition to that, there is some department discretionary money that would be part of the budget. All employees would not necessarily receive this, but it gives department heads some flexibility in awarding some discretionary money for outstanding performance. And you can see the guidelines down below where someone might be eligible for that department discretionary increase. For example, overall performance is continually above the standard. Performance has been exceptional and usually exceeds job requirements, consistently takes on additional assignments without affecting other work, and makes suggestions for continuous improvement in both personal and organizational areas. So that would give each department a little more flexibility to reward their outstanding performers.
Yes. Councilmember Barber.
I know we talked about this when you introduced the range, but this is for all employees. There's no cap for this. There's no limit to that an employee can be rewarded or compensated.
Well, the cap would be the percentage increase cap. Is that, am I following
So
you?
that would stay, so like if they're capped right now, if there's someone that's already there, even if their performance
Oh,
is,
if they're at the top of their.
Yeah.
I think in very rare circumstances, would you move them beyond the approved compensation plan cap?
Okay.
They would receive the cost of living
yeah,
portion of it,
but they would stay within that.
but they would not receive a merit step.
Okay.
I wouldn't move anybody off of above their pay, the top of their scale without you being involved in that decision.
That was exactly my question. Thank you.
And bonus, I know that there's bonus pay available as well, but that could be over and above the. Sure. Okay, all right, thanks. Councilmember Lords.
So Dean, if I can just kind of clarify, so on the departmental discretionary, is that up to, or where it says greater than 1.5% and greater than 1, or is that up to 1.5 and up to 1%?
Yeah,
Okay,
up to
I just want to make sure that
Yeah, it could be.
is not
0.5%,
minimum, that is the
1%,
maximum.
But up to 1.5.
Okay. And then on the bottom right quadrant, where you've got the midpoint to maximum for the needs improvement, shouldn't that be limited to 0 to 2.5? They
Yeah.
shouldn't get more than a meets expectations person?
Yeah,
So,
it should be.
and then the last question I had was on so when we talk about the cost of living, is this in addition to cost of living, or is the cost of living included in these numbers?
This is in addition to cost of living,
So somebody could technically get 3% plus 1.5 plus 2% cost of living?
Correct.
And so they can get a 6% raise.
So you've already essentially awarded 1%, so we moved the compensation plan 1%, and there's been discussion about moving it another 1%, and then the matrix would come into play.
So are we proposing another shift of COLA plus this, or just the 1% plus these?
Well, the motion was for the other 1%, the employees who deserve merit to get their merit, and to hire the firefighters. That was the motion. So this is quite a bit more than what the motion was. It's just something I have to look at and study. It's not what I was prepared for, because that's not what the motion was. And so I was hoping that if you're proposing something, it would include that, so it's 2% is what we've basically approved so far.
As a total increase?
The 2% cost of living.
Okay.
We did the 1% originally clear back in May or
Right.
June. And then when we talked and I made the proposal and it was seconded and we voted for it, it was for 1% more, and for the 3 firefighters, and to give merit increases to those employees who deserved it. That's
I
what,
think that's what this is.
okay, that's,
Okay. So that's what I just wanted to say, because there wasn't really anything specifying COLA versus merit, so I just want to make sure that all of that is included in this.
And we address COLA just separately each year. So
Right.
there are times we've given merit when we have done 0%
so this should
COLA
include the
increases.
2%.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure.
The budget does.
Okay.
The budget does include the dollars that we're going to talk about. Like if you want to know, well, what is this compensation study going to cost us this year? I think Dean's prepared to talk about that, and he can say, we got the first 1%, the second 1%, and then he budgets for the maximum amount, or maybe not quite the maximum, but the total amount. But we do not anticipate everybody getting that maximum amount that you're addressing as merit. Merit should be all over the board from 0 to 4.5%.
I think Councilmember Adams has a question.
Good, thank you, sorry for interrupting. At the bottom of page 1, where it says, time paid on hourly basis, annual /2912 hours, I guess I would be curious, is that saying that on estimate that when these are placed on hourly, that they would work 2,912 hours if
No.
they're paying salary, or?
No, that only applies to firefighters. I think it's in the column under firefighters. The hourly rate is based on 2,080 hours, but in the case with firefighters,
I was wondering if it was based off for salary paid employees if we were basing off of the regular 40-hour week.
Correct. In the case of firefighters, we get an annual amount, but we expect them to work 2,912 hours as opposed to 2,080 hours because they work 24-hour shifts. Does that make sense?
Okay. Councilmember Tran, do you have any questions here?
I just had one question, thank you, Mayor. Or is the proposal to make, if we propose to do something about this, would it be to make this retroactive to, was it June?
July 1st.
July 1st? Is it retroactive? Yes or
It's
no?
up to you.
I remember having.
Can we afford to have it be retroactive?
An increase in the future, it would be retroactive to.
We're prepared to talk about the numbers that would be involved with making it retroactive. I think that would be,
Okay.
if you want to ask Dean and I if that's our recommendation, I'd say it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what we
All
had
right.
planned on.
That's exactly,
Yeah.
because of Councilmember Tran, what she just said, that's what we were going
Yeah.
with.
Okay, all right,
That's like one small part of what we're looking at.
okay, all right.
Any questions on the matrix there, on how we implement that? Okay. And then what-
I just,
sorry, Mike.
one clarification though. So if you do this compensation plan, so like right now, everything's in grades and steps and so forth. So would an employee start out right at the point they're at right now? And they would just switch over into this program, but start at the point?
Yeah.
So going back retroactive, they would definitely get the 2% cost of living retroactive and the step raise based off the grade and step that they should have gotten.
It'd be based on this. We're not suggesting that we implement the compensation study all at once.
Yeah.
We're transitioning into this.
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. Whatever the employee is in probably 95% of the cases, we'd say, this is where you are now. You
And
fit
that's where you will
here.
start.
Are you between minimum mid or mid max? And then award compensation based on that.
All right, I wanted that clarification.
Okay.
Okay. Councilmember Lortz.
Are all of the reviews done at the same time for the employees, so the raises all happen annually at the same time, correct?
We try and get them done before the end of June.
Yeah, the reviews have been completed, so I think what we would do based on the outcome is Shane would direct department heads to go back and take a look at the reviews and implement the new plan.
And maybe this is more than you need to know, but my direction would be, I don't want to see I want, the occasion where you use the 3% and the 1.5 should be a very rare occasion, in my opinion. I think we need to, that shouldn't be the standard. I think the standard is the middle, and there may be some on the lower end, the needs improvement, and then there's some on the higher end too. There probably are a few, but that, I just don't like it to get into it where we just say, these are our options, and this is where we always end up. I think that's wrong.
Okay.
I have a big question, but I don't know the best way to put it. Okay, so you're going to have to help me out with this. As you know, I have a very high passion for getting this fire department fixed. And I appreciate seeing the 3 firefighters, and I just want everybody to understand, 3 hires of firefighters only really means 1 person comes to work, because it's 3 people it takes to cover a 24-hour shift, basically. So my concern is I'm so concerned right now because we're not covered. And there's 40,000 people out there, and 4 people are covering those 40,000 people. And I've made it very clear many, many times, this is critical, and it's got to get fixed. And I just want to make sure that I realize there's only so much money. And by adopting a compensation plan like this, because hiring 1 more firefighter, that's 3 firefighters to get 1 more position, that's a step in the right direction. But it doesn't get a second ambulance out of the fire station. It doesn't get an engine crew when the ambulance is gone. It takes 2 positions, which is 6 people, to make sure that we can get to the minimal safety standards that we need to have to cover 40,000 people. And I just want to know, by adopting a compensation plan like this, does it take so much money away that that's not even in the future? That can't happen. Because to me, that is the biggest critical issue we have right now in the city when it comes to employees. And people may not agree with me, and they may have other needs. And I agree that, like the clerk, I see how much billing has changed over the last 20 years, and we haven't got more people to cover that billing. We've just asked the people we have to somehow do more. And so I just don't want to postpone fixing a serious problem that we have. And I know Chief E's not here but he's told us all. He's made it very clear. And you know, it's not safe, it is dangerous. And some of these needs may be not as dangerous, but they are needed. I understand there are multiple needs, but this one I'm really concerned about, because we've increased our public works, we've increased our power department, we've increased our park staff, we've increased police, everybody, but fire we have not. And so that's where I'm concerned, and I just want to make sure that this doesn't put us so further behind in trying to get this issue fixed. So
Can I ask
have a
question for
comment.
Councilman Blackman, or Councilmember Blackham, or maybe in Dean. Let me start with Dean. So the numbers that you've given us about the budget amendments, and that, is that for a full year cost or a partial year cost?
Full year.
So, for instance, the firefighters we're talking about, we're probably not going to be able to hire them till at least November, December, maybe January, we have them all in place, so it's half a year.
Yeah.
To Councilmember Blackham's, if we said 6, we'd have the same full year cost for 6 or a half year, but it would commit us that next year's any growth in revenues would have to cover that first before we could consider other things. Would that be correct in my assumption?
I think when we look at the budget amendments, that'll become a little bit clearer.
Okay.
We are proposing that we hire the 3 full-time firefighters, but we're not substituting any part-time help that's coming in now as well. So proposals in the past have been, we're just going to replace part-time people with full-time people, but
it wouldn't work over there.
yeah, I know, but I
That's
think
where we've been.
to Councilmember Lord's point is how much of the apple do we want to bite now, and how much can we bite? You know, how much money is really available? I think it'll be, as we go through the amendments, we can look at those and then maybe have that discussion.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, can I ask one other question? When we talk about the budget amendments here, the other thing, and you don't have to answer it right this second, but the difference between if we had stayed in the step versus this new range performance review compensation, do we know what the difference between what you're proposing in the new program versus the old program would have done? Or is it fairly similar?
I don't have that with me, but overall, the percentage average was about 6%. The compensation study was about 6% off. So if you raise that 6% on a $7 million payroll budget, $300,000, $400,000 over the life of it. I mean, not in 1 year, but as people transition into this new compensation plan, it will cost the city more money over the life of the compensation.
But a lot of that is acknowledging where we are in competition to other.
Right.
It's getting us up to where we need to be. And I guess maybe to answer Councilmember Blackham's question, the compensation study doesn't, it's using real money, and so you could argue that takes away from new employees, but it is not acknowledging, it's not in competition with any new firefighters or any other employees. I mean, it's addressing our existing employees only.
Okay, thank you.
The next page are administratively approved positions. That's done by departments for part-time, temporary, and seasonal positions. And they're back to a typical grade and step plan on an hourly basis.
It's the last page.
Last page.
Okay, the next handout would be budget amendments, and as you can imagine, our focus is on personnel for the budget amendments. So this first page, I recognize it's fairly small, but I want to go down and start with the expenditures, and this is the general fund summary. And again, to answer Councilmember Lort's question, everything here is on an annual basis. So we're matching annual revenue with annual expenditures. So when you start the budget process again a year from now, you're not making up for lost ground. So the first item, item number 1, is to remove the fund balance allocation. And by doing that is we're no longer in the budget relying on taking fund balance, we're matching revenues with expenditures.
I'm sorry, do you all know what that means?
Yes.
Okay.
We're
Because
not
it's
borrowing
confusing.
from our savings.
That's correct.
Just that it's even at the very end of the year.
Exactly
It's
right.
zeroed out, basically.
Great job.
Yeah.
Balanced budget.
Yes, and you can balance the budget with beginning fund balances.
Right.
With saying you're acknowledging
Borrowing
your
your sa-
spending.
taking- You're spending your
But then
savings,
what do you
yes.
do with your carryover? If
Well,
you do
that is
have
the
it?
carryover, is the savings.
Yes, so the carryover will automatically go into
But
that, and then you can use
Will
it
the carryover show in your revenues in the following
Or
year?
does it go for the next year?
in your
Becomes
actuals.
Unrestricted fund balance.
It does become unrestricted.
Yes.
Okay.
But remember, this is our, your budget is your projected, and then your
Yeah.
actuals at the end of the year will show, oh, we have this much more money in our fund balance than we did.
Okay, item number 2 is an annual implementation of the compensation plan and performance matrix. So on a full year basis with the 2% cost of living and with the full normal increase plus the department discretionary, this is worst case. You can see it's about $285,000 to the general fund with $100,000 additional for benefits. And then there's a credit because of the 1% that already has been
In the budget.
awarded to bring it to an annual basis. So you can see the cost there. Item number 3 would be additional council-approved positions. You can see the 3 firefighters, total cost of about $280,000. And that includes 3 firefighters, complete salary, wages, and then additional monies to cover vacation, training, sick leave, other items there. 3B would be a billing clerk, and the general fund cost there is about $19,000. That's because most of the work of that position is chargeable to the enterprise funds for billing services. So about 75% of that cost is charged to the enterprise funds. Item C is an information systems analyst that we talked about, and that's to help the IT folks that we talked about, particularly with records and on-base and workflow, that sort of thing. General fund cost about $57,000. There is some charge to the enterprise funds. There we charge enterprise funds based on the number of devices each enterprise fund has. So for example, if Power Department has 20 computers, we total up the total computers and say Power Department pays their proportionate share for IT services. Water employees, there would be a small cost to the general fund there of about $9,000. And then the locator position would be no cost to the general fund. Item 4 essentially would be holding things at current levels in terms of operating expenses. So we would not increase operating expenses for each department, with one exception that's listed here. Jefferson Academy has requested a crossing guard, but they in turn will reimburse the city for that. So we show it, the expense and the revenue on this worksheet. So with that being the expenditures, you can go up and look at the revenues now. We think there's some room under registered vehicles, about $50,000 additional revenue. We think there's about $550,000 in sales tax ongoing if the trends continue the way we think it looks like they might. And then $88,000, which was the TNT, Truth and Taxation allocation. And then you can see the charges that come from the enterprise funds. So to wrap up general fund, if you look at revenues and expenditures, with what we've listed, there's still a gap of about $148,000. So again, you could plug that with fund balance, or you could make some adjustments on some of these requests.
So you would take the fund balance from last year that we carried over and pay into that. It's not really borrowing, it is revenue. It's spending prior, it's
Spending down your
revenue.
fund balance.
It's revenue.
And we anticipate this year we'll have about $350,000 of unrestricted fund balance that will be added to our current fund balance. And that's why we want to talk about maybe how we fund some capital projects in just a minute.
Yeah.
Just
Shane.
real quickly, the 143, I know that sounds like a lot of money, but it's a very small amount of money if you look at our entire budget, number one. And number two, I know you know this already, but just always keep in mind that as we always tease Dean about being such a miser, the reason why we have fund balance is because we come under budget and we meet projections in our revenues. So 143,000 is very easily going to be made up with, if nothing else, just saving,
The 140
spending less.
148?
I mean, if
148,
if these council-approved
148. I was thinking
positions
so.
have not been hired yet, and they're an annual cost, I mean, for the fiscal year, I mean, that's about 180,000 that would not be spent
You'd
yet.
make that up in
Because if you
current-
don't.
Right there.
First,
So-
first year, you'd be fine.
Okay, and then Dean, I have one other question. So on the current sales tax trend, we're showing essentially fiscal 2020 was at 5.6 million, and we're budgeting next year at 5.4, so it's about a 3% decrease in sales tax revenue,
You
correct?
caught me.
Do we need to bring out the
Did you just make the best-
sandbag award?
Example of what I just said.
Miser, I think
But
is the word that
we'll
you
come back to
used.
that for Councilmember Blackham's question and concerns here as we finish this conversation.
Again,
Let's go
how
through
much
rest
of the
it.
apple do you want to eat? And-
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, but can I ask a question on
Of
that?
course.
Like I know that we can't predict the future. Shocker here. But, I mean, what makes us think it's going to be so significantly less next year? I mean, I know, I'm hoping COVID is taking a chill,
You know,
but,
we could see some things happen with COVID that we have no idea.
I know.
You know, it happened to our favor.
Yeah, to
this
our
time,
favor.
But it could go the other direction. I don't know.
So it makes one-time money so much more fun than ongoing
Yeah,
expenses.
it's true.
One time's great.
One time
We got
is-
it now, let's do, but
But maybe I'm overly optimistic. I don't want to under budget for things we really need.
Well, and I mean, if I look at it, the last 5 years, we've essentially averaged better than a 5-6% growth in sales tax revenue every year. And so to say it's going to go backwards by 3 or 4% this year is certainly conservative, and I think it goes to the conversation about, do we want to take the risk of, if it benefits the city to hire the 6 firefighters, understanding they're only going to be a half a year this year, but full year next year, that we've pre-committed some growth for next year's budget to pay for those firefighters we hired in this budget, but it should still balance the current year's budget.
Yeah, I think it limits you for next year
It limits us, yeah,
to
absolutely.
some degree.
Because you've already committed to that growth, so any growth you get first goes there before you can do anything else. Does that make sense, Councilman Blackham? what I'm
Yeah, it
saying?
makes sense, but I know every department has needs. I know every department is gonna fight for money, but I just wish that we all could go back and see the history of the city and see that every department, other than the billing department, has gained a lot for what they had.
Well, but if
The
we,
fire department has gone backwards, actually.
so, but I'm saying, if we essentially take the numbers we're talking about, so right
I
now we
see,
have
yeah.
$180,000 of unfilled positions, $150,000 of additional potential sales tax revenue if we're just flat.
Right.
Those two combined would cover the additional
Three
three
firefighters.
firefighters to get us 6.
Yep.
And it wouldn't really blow this year's budget, but it would
It
handcuff us.
commits next year.
It commits for
It commits for
2022
2022 budget.
Yeah.
budget
Yes.
for us. And so that's kind of the question, I think, for the council is, do we want to make that bet? Do we want to take that risk to balance the risk that we have within the fire department and assume that we're going to have continued good performance within the city? Certainly, we know Dean's recommendation is he wants us to be conservative and wait until we see it before we spend it, which I live by that many times in my life. But to your concern, I think that is an option as a council. We can play through how we do that.
Shane?
I guess my question, maybe this is for Councilmember Black or maybe it's for Chief Erickson, but is that enough? You know, this sounds terrible, but where does it end? You know, is that get us to where we need to be? Because I don't know all the details and I can't tell them to you right now, but I don't feel like, I know that what you're saying, Councilman Blackham, is absolutely accurate. When I got here only 4 years ago, we had barely hired the 3
Full-time.
captains. The
Yeah.
3 captains. So all we had
That's
was Chief Larkin at that time. And so I feel like we have come a long way, even though it's probably not enough, and I would agree with you that it's not enough. But also, are we way out of whack with all of our sister cities? I mean, I feel like we're still ahead of Farmington, for example. I think we've done more and have more full-time employees than they do. And where are we in reference to Syracuse and South Ogden and these other cities? I mean, I don't know
Syracuse
the
has
answers.
6 full-time in the station right now.
Yeah, okay.
Farmington has 25,000 people. We have 40,000 people.
Yeah.
That's where my biggest concern. And what I can't seem to get across to everybody is when the pager went off in 2005, 10 people would show up at the station. In 2020, when the pager goes off, there's 4. That's it. But yet we've got so many more people, so many more calls, but yet we have so much less coverage. And we are totally relying on other cities completely.
Is that,
Remind, what was the proposal, the plan that Chief Erickson brought to us of how many he said we need to do over the next 5 years?
He had 9, I believe.
Over the next 5 years.
And so, I mean, I think that.
Or actually, didn't he have 21 with the paramedics?
Well, yeah, if
Yeah.
you-
But
if you
that
take,
was-
that's a whole different
Yeah.
discussion.
But that's a different discussion, but he
But
had,
if we talk through that, so I mean, to Shane's point, I mean, where does it end? Well, that's the proposal over the next 5 to 6 years, or 4 to 5 years that we wanted to get to.
and you could get me pretty much to calm down if you could get a second ambulance, or when an ambulance is out, you could get an engine crew safely to a call.
Right.
You would probably
what
get
does
me to
that-
calm down.
what does that
Is
look
that the
like?
6?
That's
Is that-
6 guys.
That's minimum
the 6 guys.
Because what do we get
That's
with
the
3? You made it seem earlier.
With
like-
3, we get one more person. So we just get one more person.
But it's not a
riding-
second call, it's not a second.
Not a second,
And
not
that's where
enough
we
to
didn't
man
have a
us.
big lag, was the secondary calls.
And that's where we
Yes.
don't have.
A call
We don't
comes
have
out while
enough
another call
people
is-
to get that second
Okay.
call covered,
So,
especially if it's a fire. Okay?
and so the risk is, I mean, if we do the 6 this year and say we're doing them half a year, so they'll meet the 2021 budget, 2022 is going to now be burdened with that full cost. And if 2022 ends up being flat revenues, then we would have to dip into the reserves to balance 2022's budget,
Or raise
worst
taxes.
case.
And I think you saw that happen
raise
just
taxes?
last year, because we had 3 police officers that were hired based on a grant, and the grant ran out, and we had to fund that this year that we didn't expect. If you'll
Right.
notice the increase on the police budget, we had to do that. I think what you're saying is exactly what we just did for the police department
Right.
last year.
Okay, so
We want to see it.
we've had
yeah.
a lot of discussion here in this room. Councilmember Tran, do you have anything that you'd like to add to this discussion? And then we'll go to Councilmember Adams.
Thanks for asking me. No, this has been a good discussion. I do have one question for Mike. Mike, in your perfect world, you mentioned you don't want to do one if it precludes the other. What would
I don't, what do you mean I don't want to do one if it precludes the other?
I think what you said is you were talking about the compensation plan, and if that's going to shortchange
Well-
our ability to get firefighters in the future.
If somebody, and that's what I was trying to find out, if under the current compensation plan, we gave them the 2% cost of living increase, they got the merit raises that they were asking for or were available to them in the current deal, would that leave enough money then by not going to this other one? Because it looks like this other one costs about an additional $300,000 or so is what it looks like.
The other one, I'm not sure.
Over the,
I think-
over the life of it.
Over the life.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
that-
one
that's
time it's
where
it's
my
much more
confusion
negligible.
was, is
Yeah.
it looked like it cost 300,000 more to do this. So no, Tammy, then it wouldn't be one or the other, it would be all.
We can't blame
So
you
I think the
for
difference
wanting
between the
that.
old compensation and this one is probably not this full 300,000. It's going to be some smaller portion
Well,
of it.
that's what I'm trying to ask. If you're telling me by adopting the new compensation, it's going to be an additional 300,000, then I'm saying, well, if it means I don't get the ambulance out of there or get
Well,
that engine crew.
let's just say, for example, and Dean, you can correct me, my guess would be is you're still going to have a 200,000 if you'd kept the old plan
Yeah.
and did steps changes for people. There's still going to be some portion of that
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
that's paid out.
Yeah.
It's not going to all go away.
Right, and 7 million,
And that would
just
be
the 2% cost of
Horrible,
living is.
Really.
Yeah, because I mean, the 1% we know is about $80,000.
But I don't want to take anything away from an existing employee who deserves a
That's what I was
merit
just-
raise or.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't
we're
ever
not
want to
gonna do
take that away from anybody.
I think my
But-
concern, Mike, is not this year. It's future years as we look at continuing to compensate our employees based on the compensation plan, based on the matrix, based on other needs that might be out there. I mean, absolutely valid what you're saying, but I also think, Parks and Recreation, I feel for that department as well.
I do
You know,
too.
It's been years since they've had anyone.
There is no question that personnel in Kaysville City has fallen way behind. You'll never get me to argue against that, okay? But there is one department that, in my opinion, is critically dangerous, and that's what I'm worried about. So, I said enough.
All right, Councilmember Adams, any questions?
No, I mean, more comment, like I said, I think we're so grateful to have people on this council that know numbers, like Councilmember Lords, and Councilmember Tran. And all of you, I guess, I should, not point anybody out, but in Mike's credit, I look at how many firefighters we have and then look at how many police officers we have, and it does seem fairly skewed, and it's probably time to get those firefighters on board. So I think that we've got to find a way to hire 6. That would be my personal and emotional feeling.
Okay. So I think we're going to have to take a vote to give direction to add another 3, if that's.
I have a question.
Yes, Councilmember Barber.
So we're already into fiscal year 2021. How fast is it even possible logistically, do you think, to hire 6 firefighters? How fast do you think? If we listed them tomorrow.
6 weeks.
Really? There's,
You know, I
Not
mean,
big of
if you're, to get the qualified people to move over to a full-time, from where
Yeah.
they are, I don't know what that pool is out there right now. I know everybody's having a hard time filling
No.
positions, so, Chief E would be more up on that
Okay.
than I would, but that's a tough question. I don't know how many are out there.
yeah, my
I mean,
question
it's
is
gonna
just.
take a little while.
We fund this hypothetically. If we said, okay, 6, we go post them, we fill a couple, do they trickle in between now and fiscal year 2022 starting? Then we're in a different position because we haven't funded it the whole year. We'll have that transfer we can add to it. I just don't know if that'll kind of take the burden off of next year. I know this year we can handle it. Next year is what we're worried about. And
No, whether you hire them now or you hire them in May next year, the impact for fiscal 2022 is the full year.
Yeah.
So you get the whole thing. And that's why I say I'm not too worried we can't balance fiscal 2021 with doing it. And maybe the direction is that we feather these in with Chief Erickson, rather than say, just go get 6 right now, but say, you have authorization for 6 in this year, and work on them over the next 9 months to get them hired.
And that's the direction I would rather see it go, because he's the man that
Oh,
needs
yeah.
to implement it in, and I just trying to facilitate to help him get those
Yeah.
people.
For sure.
I'm just, sorry, I'll give one more comment, if that's okay, Mayor. To me, then, we're really talking about the risk of next year committing $280,000 in the
Yeah.
budget. The first $280,000 of growth next year will have been already committed to the fire department by what we would do today if we do this. And so that's the risk.
So we're banking on growth. We're saying,
So if next year is flat,
yeah,
then we would probably have to use the
yeah.
unrestricted fund balance to
Unrestricted.
cover that in the next fiscal year.
Yeah.
And it would also mean that you would have tough choices, because there wouldn't be any money available for raises or cost of living unless we went further into the reserve balance or fund balance. Is that correct, Dean?
Correct.
And that's not taking into account the rest of 2020, and who knows what.
No, we're in 2021. 2020's gone.
I know.
It ended June 30th for us.
Yeah, because I know.
bypass it.
That's right.
the-
Oh, quit it.
If we have a huge natural disaster, we have to have some money in reserve.
Well, we're still, I
But
mean,
anyway.
even with that, we still have, I mean, the
Our reserve
fund
is-
is $4 million roughly, the unrestricted fund balance.
4.3 probably.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's $4 million, so when we're talking about 300,000, it's probably, I mean. we were-
300,000
we had
conservatively.
300,000 We had
Conservative.
270,000.
Yeah.
Planned for this year to hit into that fund just to try to squeak by. So I'm not too concerned if we ended up saying we're risking putting that into next year's budget in the fund
And-
balance.
This is just a priority that we've made it as a city. And
I agree.
it's like we were saying before the meeting started, Mike, we're going to make it work. Once we hire these people, we see the value that they have, we're going to make it work in this city. And if residents feel it, it's because we're providing a better service. We're providing one of the most essential services. We'll make it work. It might get a little tighter, but are we willing to do that? I think so.
And as I said at the beginning, this is a policy document. The budget is a policy document.
Yeah.
So you just got to figure out what,
And we just have to
What
be
you value.
transparent. When truth and taxation comes around, we can say, we hired 6 new firefighters.
Let-
We've
let
got to
me
make
just,
sure
if I-
we can
If I
fund
can,
them.
just
Please.
tie up what
Yes.
we've got as it affects enterprise funds. And then I think at that point, you can give us some direction on which way to go. You know, the position we've talked about has impact on enterprise funds as well. Enterprise funds, for the 2 water employees, I think we're going to recommend that you do a 7% increase in water rates right away. And
Retroactive to July 1st?
not
Just
to-
teasing.
Right away. And then I think we need to examine some other enterprise fund rates as well, and then over the next 3 or 4 months. I think when we present our financial statements, you'll see that a lot of them are real marginal on operating income. So I think that's something to keep in mind, but you can see that some of these positions we've talked about have a direct impact on enterprise funds, that we're just going to add expenditures to those enterprise funds without any corresponding revenue, with the exception of the water fund. And then just that last page, and then I'll sit down and shut up. There was discussion about maybe some budget amendments using capital that we have available, unrestricted fund balance, for particular capital projects. And so we've provided a list here as well of maybe some options to look at for using unrestricted fund balance, not operating revenues, but unrestricted fund balance. General fund is where we have money available. Enterprise funds, not so much. So I think that's what I wanted to present.
okay. All right, thank you. Okay, so,
Do we want to talk about any of the one-time capital suggestions?
Yeah, I would like to.
all right, let's do that.
Because, do we, Can I ask a question first?
Yeah.
For Shane?
Go ahead.
Are we looking for feedback on these?
Sure?
On this? Because this is all a recommendation that you're taking out after tonight. So I want to make sure this is totally buttoned down.
Let's do
All
it.
of these. I have a couple that I specifically want to talk about, but is that okay? Or Councilmember Lords, do you have?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Parks, this is an update that we've had. They're on the packet, or in our document, I should say. The additional pickleball lights, adding the 4 lights. If you go look right now, we have 4 lit lights that came when the city and community partnered together to put them on, leaving 4 in that furthest north row unlit. This was actually deja vu. For those of you who have been paying attention, exactly a year ago is when we brought this up. We decided to fund them based on impact fees, but impact fees haven't been accumulating as fast as we were planning. And so the need is still there. We're just saying, let's get these done right now, and we can talk about how to do that.
Exactly.
Pickup replacement, that's for the parks staff. I can explain more if anybody wants it. And then Schick Farm Arena property, which everyone is very familiar with in the city now. We've done a really great job of marketing that newly acquired park because it was a fantastic dump site. Well, it currently still is till Saturday. But we have a contract in place that stated that we needed to improve that park by 2021. And that is calendar year 2021.
By
So
the end, beginning,
end of next year,
end of 2021.
end of 2021.
Sorry, just make sure. Cole's thought was it was from 3 years from the contract date, and he thought it was October of 2018, which would have been October of 2021.
Oh, okay.
But either way, he
That's like a couple
believes that
months
if we did
difference.
kick this to 2022, he could do
Yeah.
it during the summer and
Yeah,
meet that obligation.
true. Okay. Either way, we need to get started on it. It's a commitment that we made. It's unused area that we acquired because we need more space. We need more practice fields. So I feel like that's a need. That's an absolute, and like we said, Parks hasn't had a lot of, this isn't staff, this is a one-time expenditure. I will skip police and fire since that's not as much my area, but even though Public Works isn't as much my area, I want to speak to the signal upgrades that we have there for the rail trail, as well as 200 north, 300 west, 200 north, 900 west. Again, kind of broken record because I brought this up last year, and this to me is a huge need. I mean, don't tell my pickleball friends, but if I had to choose between pickleball lights and lights on the trails, it would be lights on the trails, because these areas, the reason that we committed to put these in is because they're very dangerous right now. We need more signals. We need them to be safer. These have been proven, and I'll have a grant, right, for the ones on Main Street. Shane, is that right? And so they're going in the city. Thankfully, we don't have to pay for those ones. We need to complete it and have them other places. We had this in the budget. We took it out when we kind of paused everything with COVID, which I understood. But now we're seeing the numbers. I think these are very justifiable things to put in. So thank you, Dean and Shane, for putting those in, listening to me. I will hopefully stop pounding you. But anyway, those are my items.
So,
All right.
Mayor, can I?
Councilmember Lords.
So I'm surprised, Councilmember Barber, you did
Oh,
not
no.
bring up the other big need that Cole gave us in his presentation.
Oh, yeah,
Which
yeah.
I think is one that
I did
really
mean to talk about that. You're
impacted
right.
me when he talked about it, was our playgrounds.
Yeah.
And how we don't have a program to update or replace them. And I think, that is an important piece, that it would send a great message to our community if we actually had that included. As I understand, the ambulance is currently placed in for a lease arrangement versus if we capitalized it. And Dean, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but if I take the savings that we had talked about, $13,000 over the 3 years, minus the interest we'd earned on the fund balance, which would be about $5,700, it's really a net $7,000 savings to lease it versus buy it, which, I would say, in my view, I would rather transfer that in to give Cole the ability to start that playground replacement than to purchase the ambulance and just run the ambulance as a lease through our things. Yes, Dean?
Maybe just one comment on the ambulance. Do you think a portion of that?
Could you come talk into the microphone since we have people listening in?
Maybe just one comment on the ambulance purchase. A portion of that, about $20,000, we think is eligible for CARES money for the transport system, automated transport system. Just,
Excellent.
I should have netted that out, but I didn't.
Okay.
No, that'd be great.
Also, talking to Cole, he said that the replacement they would like to start with would be about 125,000.
Okay.
So that's, if that's something that council's willing to do, that's the need.
Okay. All right.
And to that point, can I, about playgrounds?
Yes,
Is that okay? One thing that Councilmember Lords and I discussed, which is a good point, is upgrades are really hard to do, especially for Parks and Rec. Maintenance is hard because you can't use impact fees for it. Impact fees go to new improvements to accommodate the new growth, which to me is really hard because new growth is also wearing on playgrounds, but that's a separate discussion. But there's restrictions on how we utilize our money. And so I'm okay if we want to adjust which money gets paid for with which, because something new, it's great to come from impact fee monies because it makes better sense. But something like playgrounds, we've got to come up with a different place.
Okay. Councilmember Tran, you had a comment?
I just had a question. I met with the Rotary Club, last week or the week before, and they were asking me if there were any parks that they could help raise money for.
Oh, wonderful.
All of them.
Yeah, all of them.
Yes.
All of them.
Start with the oldest and work up.
Yes. So the answer is yes.
Yes, okay. of course.
Daly Park,
Okay, got it.
Ponds
Okay,
Park.
thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
Maybe just one other thing. I know Dean may get mad at me here, but the 772 is not to me a number we need to stay under. I think it's a good guideline. If you're eking over that, again, you're spending fund balance. Some of it we need to spend, so just
Yeah.
keep that in mind. I know Dean doesn't like that, but I'm okay going to 24% of our general fund, even if he wants to be at 24.5.
So, just a question on the parks to you.
Yeah, of course.
So could you, like the 250 on the Schick Lane, could you reduce that amount and put money towards playground equipment? Like maybe it's only 200,000 you need and enough to buy playground equipment for another one? And maybe, is that a possibility to?
I think that the 250 is needed.
Yeah.
It could be, the only thing you
Could be
could do is
tiny.
kick it to 2022.
That's what
But
I
then
mean. Could it be
you're
taken over?
obligating
Yeah.
yourself to do something there in that one-time money, but you'd have to do that next year.
Then it would be taking the one-time money from next year rather than right
He
now.
actually said that he would like
We want-
at least 50,000 this year to do like
Oh,
some.
yeah, the
some
engineering, the
design,
beginning, yeah.
irrigation and some
Totally,
engineering
yeah.
and some stuff like that,
Yeah.
preparation.
I would be fine. I would be completely open to that as long as we, and the great thing is we're still a council next year. As long as we know our commitment of, okay, we still have to finish this, but we still have next fiscal year to adjust the budget.
Councilmember Adams, do you have any questions or suggestions?
No, I actually tend to agree with what Councilmember Barber's talking about with the signals. I think it's really important to, sorry, I broke out.
No.
I think what she said was absolutely correct.
Okay. All right, wonderful. Thank you.
Which signals is that? Because they just barely put signals on most.
They're at the main crossing. So like if you think of 200 North, but they're by Smith's.
So different than the ones they have in there now?
Uh-huh. They're different, stronger lights. It's like a whole extra system that
I
has.
think Lyle could speak
Yeah.
to that.
Oh.
Yeah, so right now they're
Okay.
yellow flashers. They change into a red hawk signal, like you see at, I think Layton Parkway has that.
Layton Parkways.
So
Yeah.
it just transfer on the existing
Okay.
semaphore to a different type of light.
What I should have done, and I will still do, is send you guys the videos where you can watch them put in use, and they have different sensing systems and.
I ride the path.
Yeah, you
I've
know.
seen them.
You know, yeah.
Okay. All right, so what direction do you want to give?
Do we
Is
need
there?
motions, or do we need just to hear?
I think that, we may want to give, if you want to specifically give direction about the six, then you should.
I specifically want to give direction, and I think I'm hearing this council support that, to get the 6 firefighters.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a
I have
mo,
a question though.
okay.
Sure.
Can we, where we were talking about kind of adjusting the parks, some going to playgrounds, some going to this, can we just say, this is the group of money, Cole utilize it the best way possible? Cole and Dean?
Yes, you can do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you okay with that? Use this
Yeah.
impact fee, this to playground, this, okay. Because I think it's going to be hard to get into the nitty gritty right now.
I do too.
Okay.
So I make a motion that we have Dean go back with the compensation plan that he has shown us, but includes 6 firefighters.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Blackham, seconded by Councilmember Adams. Any comments on that?
Does that include?
Not that bit. It doesn't. I think we're just doing this specific item.
Okay.
Right.
I just wanted to clarify
That's
what we
the
were.
Yeah.
full- This is the one time, the parks is the one time, this is for the.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask
Do you
a
want,
question? So I just want to clarify on the motion, are we making it so that it's the 6 within this year? It's not saying get 6 right now, let Chief Erickson.
Within the year, yes. We'll leave the hiring part of the
Timing
6
of
up
that.
to Chief Erickson.
Okay.
We're not
Okay.
saying you got to have them
all
by.
right, is that clear? Councilmember Adams and Tran, do you understand the motion?
Adam seconded it.
Okay, yes, all right, wonderful. All right, let's go to a vote on that, and I think it is Councilmember Lortz.
Aye.
Aye.
Adams.
Aye.
Tran. Councilmember Tran, are you a yay or nay?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
okay, motion passes unanimously on that one.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
And I want to say, this is an awesome council to work with. Thank you.
Okay,
I think we'd like to
agree.
add what revenue source will fund those. Do you want us to use fund balance on that or increase sales tax revenue?
Is that-
Increase
is that-
sales tax revenue?
move
Can
the
we do
sales
that?
Is that a tax?
Sales tax revenue is.
I would
what-
like to increase sales tax
Well,
revenue.
and
if
like I
we
say,
could.
if you essentially don't assume that they're going to be a full year and just put them in for half
Yeah,
year
you probably
for
don't
all
need to change
6.
it much
Okay.
this year, but
Okay.
Yeah,
that just goes against Dean's whole, he just ruined his,
it's fine.
he's trying to air high, and you just made him air level. That's not good.
Well, no, I've given him the, he's
No, there's-
just
a
a
lot of
half year
anxiety.
Okay.
provision.
Oh,
so.
it's,
There's
All
still a
right.
little wiggle room there.
and I don't know, as long as Dean has heard the
Yeah.
discussion,
The
I
feedback
don't
on-
think we need
Sorry,
to
these are all my notes.
specifically take a vote on the
How
other.
to adjustments, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I think that we would like you to bring it back as an action item, obviously, and.
it'll be in the budget, is
In the
really the
budget,
action
yes.
item, is to approve the budget. So we'll
Yeah.
take this direction unless you need to give
Add
further
it to the budget,
clarification.
yes,
Change the budget accordingly and bring that to you next meeting.
which is October 1st.
Really just have to also be a required budget hearing.
Including the 7% change in the water rates and the compensation you
Yes.
just mentioned.
Can we
Okay.
do that all at one time?
It's different motions, but will be all action items.
But do
Okay.
we have enough time between now and the 1st to publicize it and?
Can I
Public
ask a
hearing.
question on the, because Josh said that he had some money to allocate for now for the, and you're proposing we just do the increase now in the water, Dean? Because wasn't Josh saying that he had money allocated for the 2 employees for this year, he told us? He did, he told us that he
He did
had
say
the
that.
money this year to allocate for the 2 employees, and so we would be looking at the increase, I thought, like July 1st of the 7%, so.
I think looking at the water revenue probably needs to happen sooner rather than later.
Okay.
We're just going off what he told us.
Well,
Dean's got more
But won't you
updated
use it
information now,
anyway?
so.
yeah.
Well,
Okay.
It was probably like a one-time thing too, but,
money he didn't spend.
spend
on
somewhere else,
projects,
right?
So he had the money to do it.
Yeah.
And then we would have to.
and also Dean, I don't know if this makes a difference, but if we are going to address things in January, there's probably not going to be a lot of drastic changes in the water from now to January. But I guess the concern would be, if we raise it now, are we going to raise it again in January, and is that okay? Because that's likely to happen.
My feeling is you're going to have to raise water rates, probably close to 15% total.
So maybe we're stepping into it as opposed to,
And
And then do some study and then maybe July 1st next year.
can you speak into the microphone? Because I'm pretty sure our council members can't hear
I
you.
thought you said 50.
15,
Please.
15. My thinking was to do 7% right away, and then study the rates for all the enterprise funds over the next 3 to 4 months, and then effective July 1st would be potentially another increase
Okay.
in water rates.
Okay, all right, thank you.
What about when you file for reelection?
Or not. Okay,
I'll fall on my sword for this one.
all right, wonderful. Okay, so we are all clear on that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dean.
Thanks, Dean. All right, where is my agenda? Here we go.
Oh, can we do the one-time funds?
Yes.
Give them direction on that in a motion? So I'd like to, I'd make the motion on the one-time capital expenditures that we would authorize for the police vehicle, the signal upgrades as outlined, and then a $500,000 for the Parks Department for their improvements, the Schick Lane or however else they want to allocate that. That would be about 620 of one-time funds.
Okay. So, does any?
I'll second that.
All right. It's been moved by Councilmember Lortz, seconded by Councilmember Adams. Any comments? Okay, let's go to a vote. Councilmember Blackham?
Aye.
Councilmember Adams? Councilmember Tran?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion is unanimous. Did that cover
Yeah.
everything?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
And they know they can execute how they fit.
Yeah.
As
that.
they see fit. Okay. Anything else that we need to tie up here? I don't think so.
I think
Okay.
that is probably an exemplary budget experience.
You know
I mean,
what's-
For a really,
Yeah.
very challenged year, lots of unknowns, took a really measured approach. I mean, we're clear into September here. We've been working on this since January, and I think we came out with a really good win. I think we should feel really proud that our staff stuck with us. They didn't just give up and say, try again next year, we're still
Right.
here. So I'm
And-
impressed.
You know, the benefit of being in a city with a tighter budget is that there's fewer decisions to make. You know, they're hard decisions,
You're
but there are
forced in the
fewer of
lane.
them. Yes. So appreciate all the diligence on the part of council members to dig into this and advocate.
Yeah, that was awesome.
All right. Okay, so we are going to go to call to the public. I don't have anybody who signed up for that. So we'll move on to council member reports. All right. Let's go with those who are joining us electronically. Councilmember Tran, do you have anything to report?
I do not. No, not this time.
And Councilmember Adams?
I do not, out of this time, no.
Okay. Councilmember Blackham?
No.
Councilmember Lortz?
Yes, obviously, the last week and a half has been quite interesting in Kaysville. I just want to give, first off, a shout out to the Public Works team for their efforts to help the residents in putting the dump site together.
Yeah.
And staffing that, and thank you to our residents for using it appropriately and not bringing us other garbage and dump stuff that was not green. Really appreciate that and their efforts. I think, it was amazing to see that come together and work for the community. Great, big thank you to the Utah National Guard for coming and helping out in the parks. I know talking with Cole today, they said it would have been months for them to fix up or clean up everything that was there, and it was done in a matter of a few days with their help, which is amazing. And then I just can't say enough about our neighboring communities and how they rallied to help our power department. Lehigh, Murray, Brigham City, and Garcane, if I can say that right. They all came with their crews to assist in restoring power. I was amazed when we were in the midst of that chaos, and we had, upwards of 15-20% of the power out in the city, and within that first day, most of that was back on, and we were down to about 5% residents were out, and then the next day it was down to probably 40 people. And those are very unique individual circumstances, and they had most of those resolved on Thursday, which was just incredible, especially when you look at the other challenges other communities around us and other utilities had with trying to restore power. I just want to say that Kaysville Power has done a great job in improving our network, that we were able to recover so quickly. It may have seemed very bad for those that were out of power for 2 and 3 days, but when we think back to 2011 and people were out of power for upwards of a week, that's a great improvement that has been made, and I look forward to the further recommendations that they'll be bringing next meeting as we talk about the reliability study. But just can't say enough about everybody in the community, the staff, coming together during that crisis to help get things done and help one another. That's what Kaysville is all about, helping each other, and thank you very much, Kaysville.
Councilmember Barber.
I am really excited to go back to parks. It's going to be a great year for Parks and Rec. It's always good to be the bearer of good news. I haven't had that chance for a while. So anyway, Parks and Rec is going to be great. And Youth City Council getting sworn in next meeting,
October 1st.
October 1st. We're really excited for them. Great.
So have you got your ho-ho-ho down when you go to Cole?
Oh, yes. That took me a second. Yes, I will. I will make sure it's a big presentation. But anyway, thank you. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for our trail in the East Wilderness Park. There's lots of great stuff taking care of our residents. So
Yeah.
feeling good.
So I too want to say, I was on a call earlier today with many of the mayors in Davis County, and Clark Wilkinson, who's the mayor of Centerville, made this comment, and when he said it, I'm like, yeah, that's it. He said, during the windstorm, Centerville was Centerville again. And I have to say, during the windstorm, Kaysville became Kaysville once again, to be out working together and helping one another, and really feeling the camaraderie and helping one another is fills up your spirit. And so I want to really give appreciation to all of our staff, all of the staff who worked long hours, especially, so Cole, Josh, Gary, Bruce. I know that our firefighters went and manned some chainsaws for a while, and,
It's neat to see
Yeah.
everybody pitch in and go to work.
That's right.
Really.
And everybody had a part to play, and everybody played their part, and appreciate that.
Even the mayor pushing a front loader?
Even that, yes. And although many things went really well, especially power getting back on so quickly, there were instances where I saw that we could do better. And specifically, communication is something that we're struggling with. It's been a constant battle. I know that all of us have tried to increase and do a better job communicating with residents. And I like to say, my dad was a scoutmaster, and he used to say, if you have one boy doing a service project, you have one boy. If you have two boys, you have half a boy. And if you have three boys, you have no boys whatsoever. And when we're talking about communications, and if we have three people in charge, very often things get dropped. And I feel very strongly that we've needed a communication director for a long time, and I am going to ask that we put this on a work item to discuss on October 1st. We just went through this process. I'm not sure about where to get the money yet, but I do know that our residents are not well served when they cannot rely on the website to always have current information, and we need to have, we can do better, but we need one person to be tasked with that. And I think it's going to benefit all departments, because each and every department is struggling with communication as well. So it's something that we need to dig into. So that's one thing. I do want to announce that I'm going to be forming an interfaith council. That's another thing that I really felt a lack. I wanted to be in contact with more individuals who are taking care of other individuals, so that if there's an emergency and all the power goes out and electronics are down, I need to be able to contact, 6 people and be able to spread the word. So, and also I just feel that there are a lot of things that go on that are good things in our community, and I want to bring more people to the table to participate in that. So I want to do that. And also, the other thing that I think we can do a better job with is encouraging people to be involved with the community emergency response team. And so, although if you could, Loretta Cole is the CERT person here in Kaysville. If you spent any time helping in our community, if you could fill out your hours, and I'll do a post on this. She is trying to track hours, how many hours were spent, and she can then turn them in and get money for equipment for the CERT team. So I think we need to help with that and encourage that. So we did so many things well during the windstorm, but we can do better. And we know where our weaknesses are, and we can make our weaknesses strengths. And so that is what I'm going to be working on for the next several months, to see how we can do that. So those are my comments. Shane, do you have any comments?
Mayor, just that we are moving into the remodel. It's nearly complete, and so today and tomorrow we'll have moved over, and we'll be operating Monday for business in our new space, which we're very excited about.
And I have to say, I was surprised we had people coming into the new building today and paying bills today. And even though as they were plugging in the computers, they were showing up to do business, and they got it done. And so excited about that, and appreciate, that was another huge project that Cole really oversaw. And so
Really good job.
there's been a lot going on in our city.
What's funny is just that we said, okay, with Thursday and Friday we're going to move, and when you tell these folks, I think we're mostly moved by like noon today.
Yeah.
We're getting out of the police station, and the police were pushing us out.
Yeah, and they said, don't let the doorknob
I
hit
had
you.
police officers offering to help me move.
Get your stuff out of our fridge.
Chief said they all offered to come in on their own time, just to help.
Clean them out, kick the door,
That's right.
change the locks.
We will be having kind of an open house if residents want to come tour the building. We're going to be doing that October 1st prior to council meeting. So if you want to come see the new digs, and you're welcome to come even tomorrow and look at the city council chambers and whatnot, but we'll have an official walkthrough on October 1st. So big hallelujah on that getting done. All right. Anything else? All right, I think I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Yes?
I
Thank
have
you.
the understanding that I was going to talk about my rezoning tonight.
No,
You told me the 17th, so
Oh, shame.
I thought you might be here for that, so I stuck around to chat.
I'm sorry. That wasn't on our agenda, was it? No, I'm so sorry.
Oh, you told me it was. So that's what
You've been here the whole time. Shame.
I was